There is a massive art black market that is going around on the internet, and this goes way deeper. It involves exploitation of artists, middlemen, MLM style formatting, minors getting involved, threats sent to artists to try to force them to comply, artists being forced into predatory NDAs, being forced to draw like 5 full art pieces a day for below minimum wage. Strap in, this is an absolute mess of a situation involving Indonesia's art black market. This all kicks off with an awareness tweet that was made by user Zainoa VT on Twitter, writing, "Very important art scam. I want to warn people about something. You've probably noticed there's a lot of raffles where the artist contacts you for a gift if you lose. This typically is the MO that these scammers engage in. They will post an art raffle. If you win, basically nothing will happen. If you lose, which is very likely, statistically speaking, they will send you this copy pasta DM in some variation where you could get a discount for any of the packages that they offer. This is a way for them to go and potentially seek out new clients." Zainoa adds, "If you check their country, it's very often Indonesia or Thailand. I'll now explain what goes on. There are often a group of Indonesian scammers behind, even if the person appears just to be a sweet girl. In fact, these scammers don't know how to draw or make logos at all. They commission small Indonesian artists for very low prices and then present you the commission as if they made it. I also got scammed that way a while ago. They were reselling my 2D on Facebook and DeviantArt, and I ended up finding the real artist who sold her commissions for a way smaller price. Often enough in these groups, the Indonesian artist is not aware, or they are guilt-tripped into accepting to join them as a shadow member, like an artist that I know. One of these victims is a user named Laura's. She asked for my help and made a tweet a while ago. She's very sweet with cute art. We contacted VGen months ago, but they never acted or answered. Please be careful with this scam, because it's not only about prices being higher for you while the artist is paid less, but they will also resell your designs, live 2D, and etc. in Facebook or other sites. And by the way, this is only the tip of the iceberg because there is a lot more that goes in on this. And before we dive even deeper, I just want to add, again, please don't send hate to any parties involved, and also don't be racist or discriminatory towards all Indonesian artists. Yes, a fair amount of these scammers are based in Indonesia, specifically in cities in Indonesia with a lower minimum wage than average, but doesn't mean that every Indonesian artist is a scammer. And later in this video, we have a list of studios that are very likely to be scams and ways that you can go and spot it. So there is this PDF that provides a lot more information into the inner workings of these scam rings. So this cites a tweet posted by user ArtistBase a year ago, March 2025, which is like a manifest account of Indonesian artists, which can anonymously share info. The translation reads, "Artists, studios which exploit artists started to spread their wings and target international customers. I also found out they are even opening commissions through VGen." And then following that, a bunch of artists started sharing their experience. A user, and this is all in Indonesian, but there's translations here, very grateful for the translations. And they say, "Reminder for artists, if you see a job offer on Instagram where the office is in Semarang, which is a city in central Java, please run. I was one of the exploited artists." And again, Semarang, and I'm not saying that right, is one of the cities that these scam rings are based in. And it's because the minimum wage is a bit lower there, so they could get away with more exploitation. So here's a summary of some victim stories. They exploit their employees, freelancers, and even students that intern at that studio. And many of them are underage. The illustrators are only a machine that must finish the art in 3 to 5 days with unlimited revisions. Even beyond this, unlimited revisions is something that very few artists offer because it a lot of times leads you to do a lot more work than you are ever going to be getting paid for. Typically, artists will offer an X number of revisions and then a fee for every additional revision on top of that. This is again to prevent you getting the runaround from some clients. Their salary is between 1 million to 1.5 million Indian rupees per month, which is around 60 to 91 USD per month prior to reductions. I'm not sure what the reduction means, maybe like taxes or something. This is half of the regional minimum salary, which is considered a law violation. And because of this heavy workload, they often have to trace and use AI, which the studio normalizes to try to get these artists to crank out as much work as possible. Now, if you're an intern, how much do you get paid? Even less, 30,000 Indian rupees per month, which is $18.29. They're mainly students treated like full-time employees. And if you're a freelancer, you're treated way worse, being terrorized if you don't answer between 10 minutes, and your payment will be reduced if you're late to finish and sending the files to the studio. And again, the deadline is 3 to 5 days for fully rendered work. Also, this goes beyond illustrators as well, because these companies don't just hire illustrators to make work, but they also hire admins as well, which manages the communications between artists and clients. These admins a lot of times will message with like really overtly girly pop type messaging like hi babe, hi honey, etc. A lot of times also these studios front as women while it is very male run, and that is information that Friendly Neighborhood Artist stated in their video. I will have their video linked down below. They provided me a lot of this information and I love watching their content. Great source if you also want to consume more art news, art drama related content. Highly recommend. So going back onto this, they work almost 24 hours, 7 days a week. They don't get holidays, even national holidays and sick leave. They're still expected to work from home. There are minors employed between 14 and 17 years old. Somebody tried spilling the tea on these studios and they got massively reported. Their phone number was shared to a explicit chat room, spamming them with horrific messages of wanting to purchase them. The studio owner actually threatened them too. These underage students, by the way, that work for these studios, these higher ups convince these students that college isn't necessary and that working for their studio should be the end goal. And oftentimes, these artists are juggling 5 to 6 projects at a time. And these artists end up in predatory NDAs forced on them by the company, where the artists aren't even allowed to use the art they made in their own portfolio. Instead, the company takes the art, puts it in their company portfolio, claiming it is their work, when it was actually made by an artist themselves. And as of March 21st, 2025, some of the accounts speaking up about this can't even access their socials anymore. So we have this document with more information about how it works. This was actually posted to a different site that was then taken down. So thank you, Nimis, for this. So again, the company structure is owner, admin, and worker, which is why I mentioned, again, there is an admin that's also being exploited in this process as well, also being forced to reply in like 10 minutes or less or face punishment from the higher ups of the company. The upper management has no clarity, largely because a lot of these upper management people don't actually know the artistic process. And a lot of these companies are operated by mentors. They act as the owner and public face of the account, representing like the overall owner, but they aren't necessarily a teacher or a technical expert. They're more so a middleman. So the flow of instructions goes from the upper management and then it's delivered to the mentor, and the mentor passes this information to the admin and the workers, the artists. This is why a lot of these studios have a lot of issues, because one, there's too many cooks in the kitchen. There's too many people involved in this process, so information gets lost when passed around. And two, a lot of the people involved have no art experience. So, for example, with the admins, a lot of them don't have illustration rigging or creative production experience. Their only experience is through client communications. They also don't really know the workload the artist must take on. And they're reportedly paid and instructed to pretend to be friends with artists and clients to build trust, to try to like be friendly, whatever. And again, a lot of these admins are also exploited by the higher ups at these companies. But the lack of like art knowledge causes even more frustrations in this process, alongside rapid expansion. So point number 5, worker complaints. Many workers are required to handle 1 to 3 projects per day, one complete VTuber rigging project, and again, being forced to use AI. And workers are required to use personal data to operate company accounts, which is so predatory. Now, what happens if you fail? Well, you may be terminated, your accounts might be taken over, your PayPal accounts, bank accounts, etc. will be seized. These artists are operating under fear of threats, gaslighting, intimidation, which leads artists to be scared of reporting this information or reporting things that are happening to them. Also, the artists face strict restrictions from their company. Many are restricted from taking on personal commissions, continuing their education, and they're treated as disposable. These companies have large age gaps, with owners around 40 and most artists in their early to mid 20s. And if you are a minor that works for these companies, some victims were reported to be as young as 13, interns as young as 16, and they're paid approximately $20 a month. many minor artists were pressured into creating NSFW content. And many models, if it was considered high quality, were secretly resold to the Asian market. This is an artist's personal anecdote about their experience. This is an artist named Loras. This was the artist mentioned by the original tweeter, talking about how their work was credited to somebody named Clarissa Wallace while they were asked to stay silent. Clarissa had commissioned them to do rendering and line art for 10 commissions that were posted under her name without credit. And Laura's was also told to not speak about this publicly. And this was the person that commissioned them. They've now rebranded under a different name. It started because Clarissa reached out to Laura's asking for help because they were overwhelmed with commissions. And it was supposed to be a small favor, and then it turned into 10 commissions created by Laura. Laura was given a sketch that was ready for line art and to render, and most of these were used for Clarissa's portfolio. Laura's was taking a modest fee for these works, and then later they found out Clarissa was selling these commissions for way higher than what Laura's was being paid. This is one of the examples of line art and rendering that was done by Laura's for a commission that is being claimed by Clarissa. And here we have more examples. Here are communications between Clarissa and the artist, where Clarissa approached the artist telling them, oh, my budget is $19.60 USD. Is that fine? And then the artist had asked if the illustration could be worked on at the same time as a different commission. And this was the final result. So in some more communications, the client asked to include some works Laura's did on their portfolio. And allegedly, this individual Clarissa had also traced AI images as well. And Laura's added that they were offered a position at their studio, but not as an artist. And for safety, Laura's was like, how many women work there? And they were told 4 to 5 women. And they add that they're not trying to seek validation or sympathy, but instead to ensure artists to know your rights, ask questions, and not accept conditions that erase your contribution or silence your voice. I am so sorry to Laura's for what they went through. And Laura's is not the only person also who is experiencing things like this, which also on a side note, that artist rebranded themselves into a different name and then put out this super vague, pinned tweet apology, being like, I want to say briefly, since you guys might have seen some things going around, I'm sorry for this. I acknowledge I made mistakes and that it caused discomfort and disappointment. I've taken steps to address it by removing the works and reflecting how I handle moving forward. I won't discuss anything else publicly. How convenient. Here are some other people's experiences working at these black market companies. This individual writes, a testimony from me, their ex-customer service, or they called it admin. Yes, the one most likely chatting with you. They actually really did this to maintain their legit individual artist branding. They specifically asked their artists to send their work in progress in speed paints like this. Because, as Ainoa is adding, some people are confused about this black market system where they're like, oh, well, I received the art, so it's not a scam. Or, well, it was hand drawn, so it wasn't an AI scam, right? It's not a scam in the sense that you don't receive your artwork, you do. It's a scam in the sense that basically everybody involved besides the higher up is being exploited in the process, right? Like what was shown before, the way these company structures work is there is the higher ups, the owners of the company, and then there are the artists and admins that are being hired to do the menial, in quotes, labor, right? The labor that the higher ups are outsourcing and exploiting. Then the higher ups will put out posts for commissions in the Western markets and in other markets, being like, yeah, here's a commission for a full VTuber model for $500, okay? And then you will purchase the commission, and then they will go to the artist and they'll be like, yeah, make me this VTuber model, blah, blah, blah. And the artist gets paid $5 USD. And the other $495, guess where that's going? Yup, into the filthy pockets of those in the higher ups who did literally zero effort of work. This is an MLM scheme where you're adding middlemen to sell a process that doesn't need all these extra hands involved in the situation. Look, admin work and outsourcing, marketing is a skill. Studios can be necessary in some aspects. Maybe an artist on their own is struggling to get enough eyes on their work to bring in commissions. So by going with the studio, you can get a fair salary to be paid for your work, and then somebody else handles the marketing for you so you can get consistent work and income. That can't be fair. In my personal opinion, there is absolutely no place in this world for middlemen, these, higher up managers sticking their hands in everything, to make 90 to 95% of profit, and the artist who actually does the work getting 5% of it. Even a 80-20 split with the higher ups taking 20 and the artist taking 80. man, we can talk about that, right? But 95% going to the higher ups is predatory. But going to this, some people were like, oh, well, like, I got the art. Well, as the admin said, these artists are legit people that are just being severely underpaid. So, yes, they will send you work in progress photos because they are hand making it. They're just being exploited. Another individual writes, I got paid 3 USD for one full body character that I had to draw in a single day's deadline. I stopped working when I saw a secret spreadsheet that we didn't know about in the server's computer. They made 3 billion Indonesian rupiahs a month, which is 178,000 USD. Guess how much the artist made, guys? Guess how much the artist made? 1.5 million Indian rupiahs, 89 USD. They are one of many artists, but still, in what world is one of your artists getting paid 0.05% of your overall company earnings? Where is the rest of the money going exactly? Because damn well I know that there is nothing you need to pay for that is going to amount to ethically justifying paying your artist that little. Another user says, Indonesian and can confirm this is true. Commission prices for independent artists can get as low as 20,000 rupiahs, which is $1.24 USD. And Indonesian VGen studios, in quotes, are just tiny home offices with a group of underpaid and overworked artists. They get way below minimum wage, below $177 per month. And for context, in 2026, Semarang's minimum wage is set at 3.7 million Indonesian rupiahs per month, which breaks down to 220 USD. So 177 USD is below minimum wage by a fair chunk. And Zainoa adds, yes, I contacted some Indonesians and they barely get 5% out of the raffle VGen scams. They also don't get anything when the scammers start to resell models. Another user writes, I am an Indonesian artist and I actually have a cousin who worked there a long time ago. So I know exactly which black agencies you're talking about. I mean, their workload is insane. They expect high quality and speed to the artist only getting paid way below average. And they often use misleading photos to lure people in. So going back to the PDF, let's take a look at some VGen brokerage accounts or broker accounts. So the right was their bio before they blew up and the left is the bio after all this expose happened. They went by the name Kwachi and now they're under the name Akeno Mikon. And they didn't change the bio, so it still says, hi, I'm Kwachi. And they removed some of the suspicious looking work that people were realizing is actually credited probably to different people. As you can see, there's proof right here. This art listing for a emote set that was credited to Kwachi is literally posted on Akeno Mikon's VGen page. More commissions with the same name. It's also on their Pinterest page. So this is the original artist. Their name is also sounding really similar. It's Kwachi, but with a W. So Kwachi. And this is what is being offered anime profile photo by Akeno Mikon. And that's again what these companies do. A lot of these companies will front as if they are one individual, like acting like, oh, they are this Akeno Mikon person, but they're actually a whole studio with artists that are being exploited. And it's not just one person. So these are the removed works because again, the original artists were found, right? This is the original art commission with the layers, and this piece was credited to, I'll just call him Akeno Mikon because the Kwachi sounds too similar to the other artist Kwachi. Here is another one, right? A furry VTuber model that is also attributed to Akeno Mikon. And these are chat proofs of purchase. This is another broker account, Kana Illustrations. And this lists that they pay a private fee so the artist can't share the commission result. I will add that there are instances in like the art space where this is actually a thing that happens where like as an artist, you are paid an extra fee so that you basically sell the rights to the artwork to somebody else, like typically the company, largely because it allows for cohesiveness in the company, right? Like part of your job listing likely will include something along the lines of anything made on company time belongs to the company. That's how they legally will have rights to their work. Otherwise, any other company would have massive legal issues when it comes to, I don't know, putting art in their games and their marketing materials, because then if you as the artist have rights to the work, then you have rights to sue them. So that's why it's like that will literally be part of the job listing. Now, the caveat that comes with that is that the artists, they're supposed to be getting paid fairly for this because they're selling basically the rights to their art to the company. And largely these companies will still credit the artist, right? Like example, Pokemon cards, you will still see a credit to the original artist on every single card. And this doc adds, on paper it sounds fine until you find out the brokers were selling the art for way higher than the artist's original offer. So these are some conversations as an example for how the studios approach artists like this. They ask for a commercial fee and offer the NDA. And then they will add the commission onto their VGen portfolio. Then when they get an order, they will buy the commission again from the artist. There is a price difference, right? Because if you're operating, a lot of these are operating in the Western market. So the prices are in USD. It's American standard pricing for commissions, which is largely a lot higher than the average commission price probably overseas in Indonesia or, other countries where the US dollar isn't as strong. And the broker gets a lot of profit from that currency conversion. Here is an example of an NDA that artists must sign. I think Demonized maybe is that like the company name, but they commission you to provide the sketches based on their concept and they get full copyright. The artist cannot share character concept works or anything related to the concepts on social media. You can't use it as part of your portfolio. You must adhere to the deadline. The commission will include source files. You cannot claim credit for the artwork for personal or professional gain. It's a bit predatory. Again, like these NDAs are actually not unheard of, right? It does happen in the industry. I've had to sign like something similar to this when I worked at a company before because it makes sense for like company operations. Again, the only way this is fair is if the artist gets paid fairly, which in this case, that's not happening. The artist is getting massively undercut in the process. So this is the purchase for the first commission that will be used in the portfolio. So then orders from the broker's VGen account that had the artist art style, with that first listing, they then bought the commissions again from that artist. And the artist didn't know that this was all happening through a broker account that they were being undercut from until 12 commissions were done. So again, here are some more commissions, more commissions. So here's a third broker account, Fujiharu. They purchase commissions from an artist that doesn't have VGen, selling their art at a 10 times marked up price. So all these circled ones are from an artist without a VGen. This is so disgusting. It's like the drop shipping of the art world, but worse. Because artist labor is getting exploited. It's disgusting to go take an artist and then you get their prices, right? And it is fair, artists can set their own prices. And then you see that, I don't know, they charge $10 for an illustration or whatever. Then you go to the US market and then sell it for $200 and pocket the rest of it yourself. What kind of disgusting behavior is this? Normally, I try to keep my language more contained in my videos, but this is so frustrating to see on just a human level. And this gets interesting because there was a list of suspicious accounts that were posted that was then taken down, basically to try to put up another one later, like, because maybe some information was incorrect in the beginning. And there was this funky side thing that happened. So there is this artist called Sentaraku, and they add, "Oh, hi, I'm just one artist who's been working on VGen for the past 2 years. I am human, I make art, I communicate, and I work transparently. I've never scammed anyone." But then there was things that were kind of exposed where it was like, wait a second here. This individual writes, "I've been feeling many different emotions since I saw the Google Doc drop. I was a client of Sen last year and purchased a chibi model for my partner's birthday. Instead, we ended up purchasing from somebody who's part of a company who exploits Indonesian artists in unfavorable working conditions and taking credit as their own. I reach out to them to DMs to give them a chance to speak, but I have yet to see proof." So they sent Sen the doc. And Sen was like, "I just want to talk to them because I have proof I never scammed anyone." And they were like, "I woke up and saw the post. I myself was shaken." And in DMs, a person who has made the document with like the list was like, "Yeah, this person was shared by somebody who worked at the company." And another user, Mochi, adds, "I want to add some info to add they are part of JRU Hub." Following these accounts, one called Midoriko Bayashi Art. And why is this significant? It's because there are 3 artists, right, on VGen, Sentaraku, Midori's, and another individual, Auralist, and they specifically offer this one type of eye banner commission, and all 3 artists' commissions look exactly the same, right? This is Midori's eye banner art, right? Look at this. Look at Aura's eye banner. This looks exactly the same. Eye banner commissions are really popular in the VTuber community, yes, but every artist who does it will have their own twist, their own like spin with their own art style while interpreting a style, a trend, a commission format. These look like they were all drawn by the same person. Really similar art style alongside, DM confirmation that the information was provided by somebody who works there. And another person adds, "You're confirming Midori is also one." And this user Mochi writes, "So if you see a similar account and a similar style like this, it's them. Because they already have standards that start from line art, color patterns, etc. I've worked there and I was one of the victims when I was 17. So yes, I know them really well. Just like another normal artist, they will draw anything when they're in the mood. But this kind disguised as a VTuber artist will upload and flex their VGen only. No art post. And most of them will tag big accounts. And this is something that Friendly Neighborhood Artist talked about in their video as well, because Iron Mouse had an eye banner commission from the user Auralist. Again, I don't fault Iron Mouse or anybody else, to be honest, who's purchased from these artists because they do a good job of cosplaying as actual humans when in reality, these are like Indonesian scam rings behind the scenes that are operating all of this. But what the Aura account did basically was make a ton of Iron Mouse fan art and kept tagging her. She probably saw it and was like, oh, the art is really cool. Okay, I'm gonna commission you. Bam. Now, because a bigger creator has commissioned this artist, it makes them seem more credible, and then other people will commission the artist. And all along, behind the scenes was one poor artist in Indonesia probably getting massively undercut in the process. But again, I don't blame anybody who commissioned these artists, these studios, fronting as artists without knowing, right? If you know now, try not to do it. So again, why is all of this a problem? One, largely because all of these artists that are involved are not being paid fairly. Not only if you even talk about it in Indonesian rupiahs, but if you just talk about it from Western pricings, because a lot of these studios are shopping around for clients in the Western market. The US dollar is quite strong right now, and it is, a significantly higher wage per like art piece than what Indonesian artists would make back at home. The middlemen know this, and they're taking advantage of pricing in the US market and then paying Indonesian artists below Indonesian market rates. It leaves the middleman taking a huge cut for doing literally zero work, undercutting artists and leaving artists with, at best, probably around 5% of what the actual commission made, for the artist doing the absolute brunt of the work and labor. Middlemen should not be profiting this much for doing basically zero labor. And also, minors are involved. Another person adds, no way you spent $500 on Makelar. Bro, they paid the people who work for them $3. And they said literally me at that time. I was so desperate for money, I worked for this black studio. And where did I get this info? I was one of them back then. I worked for them when I was 16 to 17 and was paid $2 to $3 for a $500 commission. That's awful. How can you protect yourself as a client, and which studios should you be aware of? There's a couple of lists floating out here. So we have this post from Intiniade. I am so sorry, I'm not saying that right. This one is the most notable probably. JRU Hub, which is a studio network in Semarang, also noted as a community, which is allegedly exploitive towards their employees, freelancers, and interns. There are also those who are underage. They act as commission brokers, creating many accounts on VGen, Etsy, Pinterest, etc. to get orders. Then the work is done in their studio. They go on to list a lot of information as well, but a lot of this information is like stuff that like we've covered prior already. And people on the internet were also like, this is a bit interesting, because that JRU Hub account had posted a clarification after the call out happened last year in March. And then interestingly, the two accounts originally calling them out, then this was posted by user Min or Spicy Chicken Wings, noted that those two call out accounts were now gone. There is a bunch of documents with links to studios that are known studios to be under these types of like brokerage or broker accounts. And there's a whole list of like VGen artists. This list is massive. And these are all allegedly artists that are actually studios fronting as one individual person with a poor artist slash multiple artists that are probably behind the scenes with no knowledge that their work is being used in such a way. Also, another disclaimer I want to add is like a lot of these artists, you will see they will have like creators, right, that they've done work for. Don't again go and blame the creators, because a lot of times they just literally had no idea. Two, a lot of times these artists made fan art for the creators and posted it on their portfolio on their VGen, and the creators might not even know that their likeness is being used to sell a commission that they didn't even know existed because they didn't pay for it because it was a fan art. Here we have another page adding beware broker commissions. This was a beware posted in 2024 actually. And here you can see examples of these hiring listings, job listings where you can see, you must know Photoshop, Clip Studio, Paint, AI. Another example. Like there are so many. And again, we have a spreadsheet with so many. Again, this one has 128 or 126 studios listed. So Friendly Neighborhood Artist has a response from VGen clarifying details, adding that VGen basically stated they're going to look into this for more details because this has been brought to their attention, and that because it's such a hefty subject to go review, it might take a while, but they do put it on high priority. So as a client, what can you do to be aware when you're purchasing artwork to make sure that you are purchasing from a legit space that is not exploiting people in the process? One, again, a lot of these studios are based in Indonesia / use a VPN to spoof a different location in East Asia. Again, this alone is not its own red flag, right? There are plenty of legit artists based in Indonesia and overseas that will go deliver your work on time that is literally one person, okay? But unfortunately, just due to the high frequency of studios specifically being located in Indonesia that are doing these types of scams, that is one thing to look out for. Two, if they are a studio, make sure they list their artist somewhere. It is all these like scam studios don't list their artists publicly because the artists are getting exploited in some way. So if the studios have a list of artists that work for them and the artists have their own public social media pages where they're posting commissions and things like that, that is a good sign. That is a green light where you can trace back to the original artist. Three, if a bunch of studios look to have like the same art style, maybe they're all inspired by each other. Maybe it is one artist's work being yoinked for a bunch of different studios fronting as individuals when they're actually just one studio behind the scenes. Four, read reviews when you're buying commissions because a big issue these studios have is that the commission quality is questionable. Not because the art itself is bad, but because there's so many cooks in the kitchen that there's a lot of communication issues that arises when it comes to the commissions. A lot of people who commission studios like this when there's too many people involved because, why do they need this many people involved? Unless they're trying to exploit some artists, right? Clients will express feelings of like commissioning and then they're like, oh, I have this requirement for the commission. I want them to wear a helmet or this. And then it feels like a lot of the things they're communicating is not being heard by the artist. It feels like the artist isn't listening to their requirements. Maybe it's a case where the artist is purposely ignoring it, or maybe it's a case of the admin doesn't actually have art experience, so they try to communicate it as best as possible to the artist, who then interprets that and puts it in the art, and it leaves a lot of room for information to get lost because there's too big of a telephone game playing between the clients and the actual artist because the client's not talking to the artist, the client is talking to a middleman, admin. If it seems too good to be true, it also might be. Like, if the price is really low and they're offering unlimited revisions and they offer to finish the art for you in literally only 2 days, there are some artists that legit operate like that. Like, they just take very few commissions at a time. They'll take like two at a time so they can do it, really quickly, crank it out real fast. And then once they finish it, they'll take on two more commissions. They work like that. A lot of artists will take like a larger chunk of commissions, like maybe 5 or 10, and then work on them over the course of a month and deliver it. But again, if they're offering something that sounds too good to be true, somebody's probably getting exploited. Either the artist is undercutting themselves and offering way too much for the commission, so they are undercharging for themselves, or there's like a middleman studio undercharging for them and that the poor artist behind the scenes is getting exploited. Number 5, if the artist is an individual person, right? Like some of the accounts we looked at, like that Midori account that was supposed to be one person that is very likely a studio fronting as an actual person. Does the art style look like they all belong to one person? Again, many artists will experiment with different art styles. They want to try, experiment, whatever. But if like they have a super refined like VTuber eye style, their VTuber model style is like astronomically different, and they also do full background concept art. Like it's just they're specialized in like way too many things, and they're all super stylized in their own different respective rights. Likely it could be because there's multiple people, which then why aren't they credited and tagged in some way? And number 6, again, if it's an artist acting as one person, no work in progresses, no example photos on their social media pages. Like a lot of these accounts, their social media pages is only completed works or something they're selling, which is fine. That's all marketing. You gotta do what you gotta do to get commissions, but they don't have like any really examples of anything else, any examples of a work in progress, of like them drawing for fun, things like that. It could indicate this is, again, a fake social media page fronting as an individual that is actually a studio. So take these all with a grain of salt. This is still like a developing story, so maybe I'll make an update on it, but I highly recommend you go check social media out and also check Friendly Neighborhood Artist content, because I did get a lot of information from them, which I truly appreciate. And also, don't send hate to any parties involved. The person who made the original callouts, Zainoa, they made like a list of studios and then they took it down and they basically handed the responsibility to somebody else. So they are also not managing any of that anymore from my knowledge. So don't send hate to anybody, but they're also not dealing with this anymore either. But this is just something that I truly think everybody should be aware of, because this is a really shady thing happening behind the scenes in the art space that should not be happening, because there should not be middlemen taking 95% of profits from artists who are legitimately doing the work. So any artist you see that is legitimate, whatever, please show them support, etc. If you have suspicions of an account that looks maybe a little funky, whatever, maybe like do a little bit of digging on your own. If you have like a trusted friend, cross check it. But like there can be cases of like actual individuals getting caught up in this mess and being accused of something they're not. So you know, take a look out for that as well. But yeah, I hope you guys like this video. And with that, I appreciate it if you like and subscribe. I'll have all this information linked down below. Check me out on Etsy. I have digital art there for streamers and creators. I also have a coffee with free resources like free sponsorships guides. And I stream on Twitch 3 days a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays at 6 p.m. PST. I hope to catch y'all there or in another video.